Have another top 8 finish at Anaheim last season. He's definitely looking to take it a little farther if he can.
Players are placing their prizes down here. Great catcher in the prizes for Hunter. It is a very useful card in this matchup. I believe he does play 2, though.
Yeah, not too bad, honestly, on Hunter's side. The great catcher being down there, a little unfortunate, like you said. Jon did prize one of his 2 Garbodors that he has, the ability lock one, I should say. He is playing 2 different copies of it, so gonna need to make sure he has access to that other one. He wants to be able to shut down the abilities on those Weezings so that that damage spread does not take place on Hunter's side.
All right, and we will start things off here with Hunter Butler going first, starting that Giratina from Lost Thunder. Not the best starter, especially for this deck, but opts for Trainer's Mail first turn, grabs an Ultra Ball.
Yeah, definitely not the starter he wanted to see. Its ability is only useful when it's activated from the discard pile, and he only plays the singular copy of it, so having it in the active spot, something he definitely hates to see. But not too bad of a turn to follow it up. I do believe he has a Shaman and a Dedenne in his hand. This could be a long one. I think Hunter is going to be drawing a lot of cards here.
Yeah, and that's what this deck does. Roxy is in combination with, of course, the Weezings, but not only that, execute.
Right.
Being able to propagation, bring it back to your hand, and just draw 6 cards for free most of the time.
Yeah, very powerful. And we saw that actually in his game yesterday where he was kind of saving the Weezings, right? Not using them super early, using executes early on because he wants to combine those big Weezing turns together where he's going to be able to reach for one-hit KOs on some of these Pokemon.
So the Ultra Ball finds the Garchomp and Giratina GX, the namesake of this deck. And it's really just pushed. It's already a great card in Standard.
Oh, right. Yeah, it's kind of interesting because this card combined with Roxy is doing very well in Standard right now, but the deck just looks totally different over here in the expanded format.
Yeah, and I think that's thanks to the double Dragon Energy being able to just essentially make you attack in 1 turn.
Yeah, it makes it much easier. And in Standard, you have to do some crazy things like, it does take you 2 turns, but you have to also like knock out your own Mismagius, get down a Counter Gain or a Karate Belt. Over here, double Dragon Energy kind of takes that spot.
All right, and a Shaman set up for, I believe, 3 to 4 cards. The hand, though, is kind of clogged up here. There is, I think, Double versus Seeker, Roxy's Sycamore, and then the Dedenne GX. Those are cards you do not want to discard.
Yeah, definitely, especially those VS Seekers. It's just really useful later on in the game, being able to reuse any of these supporters you've already used. Going to actually choose to go with the Professor Sycamore as opposed to the Dede change. Doesn't really want to have that liability on his bench, I think.
Yeah, and to point out, the Sudowoodo on Jon's side of the board, it could limit the options that Hunter has later on in the game.
Yeah, so definitely heads up there from Hunter. He knows that he might want to get down another Garchomp. He might need to get down that Guzzlord and Naganadel tag team GX as well. And Battle Compressor, every time Hunter plays this on the first few turns of the game, you're always going to see those executes hit the discard pile.
Yeah, that's his #1 play. It enables essentially his entire deck. And the last card here is going to be the option of choice. We did see he has a Lightning prized. Mm-hmm. So he could opt to discard the Lightning here, but then it forces his Coco Prism to actually put in a lot of work and early.
Right, yeah. I did believe he already discarded 1 Lightning, so he does have 2 in the discard pile. So he can still get like full effect out of the Coco Prism Star, but
you have to find it.
Yeah, exactly. That's the key here. And getting those executes down is going to make things a lot easier. He doesn't have to have any painful discards with something like a Ultra Ball or even the Great Catcher later on. And it's just going to be a pass back over to Jon, starting off the game.
Oh, no. Jon with just a draw and a pass back of the turn. Not the usual explosive start you see from Zoroark here with, like, turn 1 Bridget.
Right. Jon luckily did get down a Zorua in his opening hand, so he'll at least have the option to maybe find a Zoroark next turn if there's one of those in his hand. But
he does have a Zoroark GX in his hand, but other than that, it's looking like, I think, like Skyfield, Great Catcher, and nothing much going on. Dowsing Machine?
Not much to work with in the opening hands. Hunter finding probably the best card for him off of that Trainer's Mail right away in the Floatstone. Will now finally be able to move this Giratina.
Yeah, Floatstone, a second double Dragon Energy coming down on the Garchomp Giratina. 4 energy now. He'll be able to linear attack the Zorua, and he's going to set up a big play next turn.
Yeah, he wants to be able to have that to be Calamitous slashed if it does become a Zoroark GX, so he needs that extra damage for that reason. Trade from Jon does discard the Super Rod, not a card to discard. Oof. Oh, it draws an Execute and a Psychic Energy. That's not any help.
Yeah, he's just going to have to pass back the turn again, and it is not looking good here. We're even coming up to maybe another double Dragon Energy and a big GG end in the future.
Yeah, that definitely could be something Hunter looks out for. Not really an attack you see come into play all the time, because it does require you to get 3 double dragons on it to get the full effect, but Hunter going aggressive here, finds the Great Catcher, using those 2 executes, brings up the Zoroark, and this is going to take a quick 2 prizes.
Yeah, Calamitous Slash dealing a ton of damage against that Zoroark GX, and there is the concession. Jon not able to draw anything off the top of his deck for those first few turns. And Hunter Butler takes a very quick game 1.
Yeah, less than 5 minutes went by in that one, and you kind of just see the consistency and aggression that Hunter's deck has, which is why I've really enjoyed watching it throughout the course of the weekend. Jon definitely going to have to try to shake that one off, but he's been in these positions before, right? He's been playing Pokemon for years, back in the juniors and seniors divisions as well. Made a name for himself here in Masters as being, you know, a top 16 competitor season after season. So he has definitely been here before. He's been down a game in a set. He knows that he's just got to shake that off and hope to draw a little better in this next game.
Yeah, and Hunter is just 1 win away from getting that grudge match victory back and putting himself into finals. And I was talking with Hunter earlier day 1 when he was about 6-0.
Yep.
You know, pretty good start. And he's like, oh man, I feel like my deck is the best deck in the room if I don't play against Hoopa.
Yeah, this deck really doesn't have very many answers. Like, we were talking about this earlier, like, you can attack with Tapu Koko Prism Star. That's an option, but you have to attach to it over the course of 3 turns. You're just ultimately going to end up losing that game. You don't have very many outs. So.
And the thing you have to think about, too, is with Alex losing in top 8,
right,
there is now no Hoopa for Hunter. He has a clear path to victory if he's able to draw the cards.
Yeah, facing either a Gardevoir Sylveon or a Rowlet Exeggutor, whoever wins the other side of the bracket. And we know, you might think that Gardevoir Sylveon seems like a scary matchup, right? You know, Fairy obviously hits for weakness against Dragon-type, but that's actually what Hunter was able to take down in top 8.
But Jon is going to try to play spoiler here. Looking at his hand, he does have a Tapu Lele GX, so hopefully we'll see some semblance of a setup from Jon here.
He does play just 1 copy of Bridget. Luckily, though, looks like it is not in the prize card, so if there is indeed that Lele, he will be able to get at least a semblance of a better setup than in this last game. Here it comes right away. Wonder Tag, searching the deck for any supporter card, putting it directly into the hand.
Does look like he's eyeing down that Bridget, but again, the big question whenever you whenever you use your Wonder Tag to get that Bridget turn 1 is, do you have a follow-up play?
Oh yeah, I've had so many instances playing Zoroark Garbodor over the last few months where I have the Lele for Bridget in my opening hand, but the rest of my hand is just not workable, right? You almost feel like you're forced to go for something like an N or a Sycamore if you play it in order to draw more cards, because Bridget's great and all on turn 1, but not the best if you can't follow up.
Now, I know Jon does have a Zorua in his hand, so we could see a full bench this turn, but again, Zoroark GX is the namesake of the deck, and he's going to look to try to find and get those out next turn. Though I do see a Colress in his hand.
Yeah, and that could be big, especially if Hunter tries to kind of explode on his turn with a bunch of Shamans and a Dedenne as well. He could definitely fill up his bench a good bit, and Jon could really capitalize on that by Colressing for a good chunk of cards on the following turn. Colress has always been a good card as long as it's been in the game, right? Ever since it came out in the Plasma Storm expansion. But once Skyfield came out, it really just kind of made things so much better, which is why Zoroark is able to utilize it so well.
It basically made like Colress's floor 10 cards.
Right, exactly. And
there is an attach of a Psychic Energy to the active Klefki and a pass of the turn. It's now up to Hunter to see what he can do here. And you were saying before how he really wants to get like Dedenne, Shaman, kind of explode his turn, get stuff, and charge up his guys. How do you do that because of the Garbodor that might be coming, like that's looming in the future, or do you want to like even put those 2 prizes on the bench.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting like give or take, right? And with no Sudowoodo on John's side, maybe Hunter feels a little more comfortable trying to fill his bench with some of those spots. I think one thing he's definitely going to want to try to find here is that Tapu Koko Prism Star, because if Garbotoxin does come into play and he's unable to ever utilize Dance of the Ancients, that's one of his main ways to get that energy acceleration to provide that extra colorless energy for Calamitous Slash in order to power it up much more quickly.
So this could be really big here. Ultra Ball gets Tapu Lele GX to Wonder Tag for the Roxy. I believe there was two. Yeah, there's a Weezing and a Giratina in Hunter's hand. He'll be able to place 1 damage on every Pokemon on John's side of the field. Then with Distortion Door, he can bring it back and deal 10 damage to Trubbish and a Zorua. And then if he has an energy, he can take a knockout with Linear Attack on one of those.
Yeah, definitely a nice way to find a cheeky little prize here on the first turn for Hunter. It's definitely possible that he could get off like a big Calamitous Slash thanks to... Ooh, this is big, actually.
Yeah, the Mimikyu from Cosmic Eclipse, putting in a ton of work, being able to shut off all GX Pokemon's abilities if they have a damage counter on them.
Yeah, I wonder if John is thinking, man, maybe I should have held this Wonzurua in my hand. He had the option to, and it looks like Mimikyu's Shadow Box is now active. No Pokemon GX and EX that have any damage counters on them will have an ability, and right away, Hunter chooses to target down the Trubbish.
Yeah, with Garbotoxin, you kind of shut off both players, but the Mimikyu is one side effect right now.
Right.
So you want to take away the ability that John has to shut off your abilities. You want to be the only person that has this effect in play.
Exactly. And, I mean, honestly, things are set up very well for Hunter here. If John just retreats this Klefki and attacks with the Zoroark GX, like, he'll do a good chunk of damage, but he'll just get knocked out right away if Hunter finds a Double Dragon Energy.
Yeah, and you saw that Execute in John's hand was not able to trade it away because of that Shadow Box ability. Just a Colress for 7 cards here. Needs to find a lot of stuff, and with these big tag team GX Pokemon, they're not going to go down in one hit from Zoroark GX.
Yeah, absolutely. I think John here really is going to want to just try to hit this Giratina if he can this turn. Maybe, you know, even energy driving it with the Lele to get some damage on it might be helpful, because then you can full bench knock it out with Riot of Speeding later on after getting 60 on it this turn.
Oh, this is awkward. He cannot trade. Ooh, that is some great judging there.
Well done, Christopher, stopping that one in its tracks. And I think John here, he's actually going to trade away the Guzma, but that's actually a pretty big card to reveal here, because he's probably going to want to try to target down that Mimikyu as quickly as he can.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate he actually drew both of his Garbotoxin Garbodor the turn after the Trubbish gets knocked out.
Ultra Ball is going to look through his deck, maybe finding something like a Tapu Lele for the next turn. He did discard a Guzma. He's actually going to eye up a Trubbish here.
It could be something maybe like a Shaman EX2 if he wants to continue digging for that energy. Again, his hand is not really helping him out here.
It is just going to be the Trubbish grab. He did have a Cherish Ball as well.
I think that's what's going to grab the Shaman at least. Maybe Dedenne GX.
Yeah, it would have to be Dedenne, actually. Oh, Cherish Ball can't grab Shaman EX, actually. It does specify specifically GX Pokemon, so
yeah, and
not going to work out
Looking
here.
at John's list, he doesn't actually play a Dedenne GX. Oh, no, he does. Okay. It's at the very top.
So he does have the one. Actually, I think that might have been his prize card.
Oh, it was prized.
Yeah, so he's going to have no option to dig for an attack here. He could have gotten
the Ultra Ball.
He could have gotten a Zoroark GX with this Cherish Ball and then Ultra Balled for the Shaman, but oh man, just a little bit of a mishap here on John's side, and this could really cost him. He's going to miss an attack this turn.
Yeah, he does have a Colress for next turn, but there is the pass, and again, Hunter is looking in a very advantageous position here.
And right away, he's got the Great Catcher as well in his hand. If he can find a Double Dragon Energy, he's certainly going to target down one of these Zoroark GXs, and he's going to take another quick lead in this one.
Yeah, one thing he's missing right now is the second Execute. Only has the 1 in the discard, but still has some play here. Double Versus Seeker in hand as well.
Yeah, unfortunate if he has to get rid of too much stuff here. He does have an N in his discard pile. I believe there's a Roxy as well, so he kind of has 2 choices. He can Roxy, draw 3 off the top with the Execute, or N to draw 5. I think he takes the much better line here, using N to draw 5.
Yeah, and your opponent didn't really play an energy, didn't really play like any other Pokemon, so you kind of have to put him on, well, you have a bunch of supporters in your hand.
Sure. And, I think that's a spot where some players would be like, oh, I don't want to play this in because my opponent didn't do much after their supporter last turn. But it's one of these situations, we've talked about this a lot in the Pokemon Trading Card Game in the past, where you have to play to win the game. You're not playing to not lose, which is what kind of, taking that passive line might be.
We saw that last round in top 8.
Right. So there is a Shaman in Hunter's hand. He can dig a bit more. He did miss the energy.
Well, here is a big one. Battle Compressor coming down for Hunter to start his turn off. Gets that second execute in the discard. So now all of his Roxys will turn into 6 brand new cards.
Absolutely. He should be able to set up here for a few cards. So that's definitely the card he's going to be looking for is Double Dragon here. He's gotten...
They're all 3 in the middle of the deck.
Yeah, so he's going to need to find it as quickly as he can. He's got a Float Stone as well, so he can play the hand down a bit more, which is certainly something he will choose to do here. Also opting, last turn at the beginning of this turn, he chose to discard a second Garchomp and Giratina GX and held on to the Naganadel and Guzzlord here, so maybe trying to close the game out with a Naganadel and Guzzlord GX attack.
Yeah, well, he's already taken 1 prize. He's hopefully taking 2 more here.
Let's see it. Double Dragon Energy. Oh, I do not see it. Does have a Trainer's Mail. If he can find his A-Spec being the Computer Search, that could find it for him. That's going to be his only out at this point. Let's see. Is there a Computer Search?
Well, I don't believe he's played a supporter this turn yet.
No, he did. He started off with the N.
Oh, that's right.
Yes, yeah, so he has played the supporter. It would have to be Computer Search here, or he's just going to have to linear attack once again, and not even going to be able to pick up a KO this turn.
Yeah, putting the second damage counter from Distortion Door on that Tapu Lele GX.
Yeah, as opposed to something like another Zorua.
He would have evolved it.
Right, exactly. John would have evolved the one that had 2 damage counters on it, so it doesn't make too big of a difference. And I guess actually the damage is probably better placed on the Lele since you know that the Zoroark only needs 1 counter on it to be knocked out. So.
All right. Well, the Trainer's Mail found Choice Band, not what you're really going to look for here. And the Double Dragon Energy is not going to be found this turn. Linear attack on the Trubbish, and it's John's turn yet again.
So a big break there from Jon Eng. Actually, something interesting to note from the very first turn John had, he chose to bring down his 60 HP Trubbish as opposed to the 70 HP one.
Yes.
Which is what allowed it to get knocked out there on the very first turn. I wonder if he's kind of regretting that, thinking, oh, if I'd just gotten down that 70 HP one. Obviously, he's able to keep it in play now, and Trash Lanch is in play. We'll have to see how many items Hunter has. There's a chance this could be hitting for big damage.
Yeah, well, he's played a couple Battle Compressor at least.
Right.
Trainer's Mails, Ultra Balls. And this Colress is going to net John 10 cards. He's going to try to find maybe Psychic Energy for the next couple of turns.
Yeah.
We know he has that one on the Klefki on the bench, which is pretty unfortunate. Although maybe he could try to get it back later, but...
Yeah, he'd have to like hard retreat the Klefki and then super out it back in, which is a play he has available to him, but it's much harder to do when the Klefki's on the bench.
You just activate the Klefki.
Oh, right, yeah. Shadowbox does only turn off GX Pokemon's ability, so it will not turn off the Wonderlock on Klefki. And maybe John here hoping to capitalize on Hunter's whiff of the Double Dragon Energy last turn. If Hunter misses once again, John actually becomes in a pretty good spot in this game.
Oh, and this is a very risky play here, too. It kind of gives Hunter an out for a free prize with that Ditto Prism Star on the bench. He needs it to deal extra damage here, but just 40 HP means a linear attack will be able to take it out.
Yeah, I wonder, I'm not sure if John is playing the bench barrier Mew. It looks like he is indeed. So that, could be a saving grace for him if he finds it, but I don't see it in his hand. So that is a potential free prize.
I honestly think it was prized as well.
Oh, okay. So he's not going to have that option. Hunter, I'm sure, is looking to take the Calamitous Slash knockout if he can, but it does give him that prize option if he does whiff again.
All right, and there is the 190 damage from Riotous Beating, thanks to that Choice Band. Again, not enough to take the knockout here, but Hunter missing that Double Dragon Energy and discarding the Garchomp and Giratina GX early, he might be in a pretty bad position here.
Yeah, and that extra damage made possible because Hunter not able to find a Chaotic Swell. If that had been in play, John's Skyfield could not have come down unless he was, to Field Blower away. That's extra stadium on Hunter's side. So it is just going to be a Roxy here, spreading some damage onto all of these Pokemon, drawing 6 cards. Let's see, Double Dragon Energy. Is it in his hand? I think he missed again.
He has that Chaotic Swell, but I think Field Blower is in John's hand. be able to do some stuff next turn, but man, I don't even think there's a float stone to get out of the active spot.
Yeah, I think this Garchomp and Giratina is probably going down for Hunter. He does have a Dedenne GX.
What a swing in this game for Jon.
It seemed like it was such a favorable spot for Hunter, and man, they're all in there.
It was the next card.
Wow, one card away from being able to get off the attack here. He can use Dedenne to keep digging to try to get this knockout, but at what cost, right? It's going to get rid of so many resources in his hand that he might actually need in order to close out the game. But I think taking this knockout here is going to be too important.
Yeah, and also the amount of items he's going to have to burn through with this Detonate GX and even just the Stretcher, the Mysterious Treasuries he's been playing. This Trashlanch Garbodor might become very threatening.
Yeah, there are a ton of items in Hunter's discard pile at this point. Trainer's Mail can find Computer Search. This is a way that he can get it without having to discard too many resources. Oh, there's two Double Dragon energies.
Him.
He cannot take those off of Trainer's Mail, unfortunately.
And opts not to grab the Versus Seeker. I think we might see a Dede change here.
It's going to be a pretty painful discard. You know, lots of resources that you'd like to have later on, but this knockout is just too important here.
Oh, and this is the... You cannot Dede change without... You can't play the Chaotic Swell. Because if you play the Chaotic Swell, it bumps the Skyfield, and he does not have enough bench space to actually play Dede GX.
Yeah, so he'd... I mean, at this point, it's like kind of okay because this Garchomp Giratina is going to go down regardless, right? But he does only have 2 copies of the Chaotic Swell, so losing that resource without getting any effect of it is definitely painful.
I think there might be a route where we see him maybe take the knockout on the Ditto and then just sacrifice this, but that's not really what I see. There it is. Dede change. And discards his hand, draws 6 new cards. We need Double Dragon. Oh, he found it.
You can see a sigh of relief on Hunter's face there. So much digging he has done this game through his deck. He's drawn so many cards, and it's kind of crazy that this is the first Double Dragon he's been able to find.
Doing a quick item count. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
That is a lot. Garbodor going to be hitting for 220. Not quite enough to knock out a clean tag team, especially since that Naganadel and Guzzlord does have the Fury Belt. But if Jon field blowers away 2 tool cards, that's 2 more cards to the count. And then with a Choice Band, that would be really close. I actually would get him the knockout there.
All right, well, here's the 12th one with Ultra Ball, discarding both of the executes. Gets the Tapu Koko Prism.
Yeah, wanting to get this energy acceleration in play here.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but the Naganadel and Guzzlord GX does 190?
It does 180 base.
80. So 190 with the Fury Belt. That's actually enough to take the knockout here. So I think he's going to attach to the bench and then Koko Prism to get another energy. Ooh, he has another Garchomp Giratina as well.
Yeah, this is actually going to be set up very nicely for him. He will be able to take this KO with a tag team that has no damage on it and also gets the extra acceleration onto the Garchomp and Giratina to try to close out the game with that.
Yeah, and with the Fury Belt, it does have a ton more HP, so kind of helping against that Trashlanch, but we know Jon has a Field Blower in his hand.
Yeah, and that will also push the item limit over the edge to where a Choice Band, I believe, would allow Jon to pick up the KO. So he might have the pieces. He does already have 1 Psychic Energy in play, only playing 2 copies of it. It's going to be big if he can find that other copy.
He does also have an option of maybe even using Dowsing Machine for Field Blower again, because there is 4 tools on Hunter's side of the field.
Oh, yep. So he could get just even more damage in play. Doesn't even have to find the Choice Band necessarily.
This is going to be a big turn from Jon here. He really needs a Psychic Energy, and I don't know. Like, he has 1 left, and maybe finding a Super Rod to put this one back and then draw more cards after, without access to trade.
Yeah, and you really just see how big of an effect the Mimikyu is having on this game. Unfortunately, our game 1 went by pretty quickly, but ultimately it feels like Mimikyu just does too much work against this deck.
All right, well, we see the Guzma, and I think we might see just Guzma bringing up that Garchomp and Giratina on the bench and taking the knockout.
Yeah, going to try to take the 3 prizes right away and go down to just 3 remaining. Hunter can't win the game on the next turn, but I got to give the board advantage to Hunter in this one. I wonder if we could have ever seen Jon try to take out the Mimikyu there to try to gain access back to his trades, but honestly, at that point, it just feels kind of bad because you're still 2 tag team knockouts away from winning the game.
Yeah, and so I think this is probably the play to win route,
right.
You know, where I'm going to take this knockout, go down to 3 prizes. I have a field blower to put 2 more items in the discard. I'm putting an item in the discard by attacking right now. So as long as I find that psychic energy, I'll eventually win.
Right. We're going to see the Pseudo-Wuda come down for Jon. Roadblock activating. Pretty easy choices here for Hunter. Going to get rid of the Shaman Dedenne, and you got to think it's going to be Giratina and Lele, or at least the Giratina only having to discard 1 more.
The Giratina does have Floatstone on it, though, so he doesn't want to discard the Pokemon with items because it'll increase the damage from Trashlanch.
And actually, this worked out pretty well. I understand what Hunter just did here. He discarded the other tag team from play. It doesn't have a Fighting Fury belt, so he knows he's in range of already getting knocked out by a Trashalanche. But Jon ended up having the Field Blower anyway. So actually really smart sequencing from Jon there as well, putting down Roadblock and then going for the Field Blower.
Yeah, definitely playing his best to try to win this game and stay in contention here.
And now Hunter is out of Garchomp and Giratina's, I believe. He may have shuffled 1 back in last turn with the Rescue Stretcher. And it is just going to be a Guzma. Going to bring up that Trashalanche, you got to think.
Yeah, this is big. Guzma bringing up that Garbodor. He'll be able to take the knockout here. Chaotic Swell as well is huge, but Jon does have that Ditto Prism Star on the bench. He does have a way to evolve into that Garbodor again, but he only plays the 1 copy.
All right.
Super Rod off the top of the deck. Exactly what Jon needs to find here. Super Rod's going to put back that Trashlanche as well as a Psychic Energy. Give him a little bit of hope here.
Yeah, but I don't think he has any... he's actually going to just get to put the Garbodor back in his hand. I don't know if he has any way to draw cards in his hand, though, is the problem. I definitely didn't see any supporter cards. Might have been a Dedenne there. If there is indeed a Dedenne, he can try to draw through that. And this game comes down to this turn. If Jon can find Psychic Energy plus Garbodor, Trashalanche will be doing enough damage to take the KO.
Yeah, there's 16 items in the discard. That's 320 damage here.
More than enough at this point. But if Jon does whiff here, if he's not quite able to find it, Hunter should be able to close things out if he can find either a Choice Band or Fighting Fury Belt to knock out this Zoroark GX.
Well, so it's awkward. You see the Tapu Lele in the discard. He had that Rescue Stretcher. Like, if what you said is true and he doesn't have anything in his hand, he actually does have an Ultra Ball. So I think the Ultra Ball will probably find him Shaman or Tapu Lele to get a big Colress or something like that.
Yeah, putting back this Lele here, definitely what he wants to be doing. It's going to find him a Colress potentially, probably the thing that would draw him the most cards. He did play 1 earlier on, so should have access to at least the 1 more. He is playing 3. So you got to think that's what he's going to be going for. Probably going to go ahead and evolve.
His hand's definitely too big to actually... Oh, he has a Dedenne GX in his hand as well.
Oh, he can thin out a good amount of cards from his deck here. Ultra Ball will get rid of 2 cards. He can go grab something to put it onto the bench. He has a Zoroark GX as well in his hand. He can go ahead and evolve that Zorua. Actually can Shaman as well to even draw more cards. Well, with that Chaotic Swell in play, bumping the Skyfield, his draw options are definitely much more limited.
Yeah, so I think he's opting just to thin the deck out here, get that Execute into his hand. He's just going to discard it with Dedenne GX.
And yeah, I think the game comes down to these 6 cards, right? If Jon is able to find a Psychic Energy, he'll only have to retreat this Zoroark GX, sending it directly to the bench and bringing up that Garbodor in order to pick up this KO. Let's see it. 6 cards. Does he find a Psychic Energy? He does!
There it is!
There it is!
And the Choice Band for good measure. And Jon is able to take Game 2 in exciting fashion here, forcing a Game 3.
Man, and it seemed like Hunter was in such a good spot, but a couple of misses for him on those 2nd and 3rd turns of having to dig so much for the Double Dragon Energy really, really affected him there. Jon able to find a way to come back despite looking like he was in a terrible position.
And that's the power of Garbodor and its Trashalanche attack, being able to just do essentially infinite amount of damage.
Yeah, absolutely. As many items as your opponent plays, that's how much Garbodor can do. And I mean, you have to play item cards, right? Like, it's just a necessary part of the game. You try to play around Trashalanche as much as you can, but sometimes you have to identify a point where you're kind of past the point of no return. It's like, I'm going to have to play items to just stay in this game. There's going to be too many in my discard pile. I've just got to accept the fact I might lose to a Trashalanche here.
Yeah, and it's really been kind of a metagame card where the metagame is kind of shaped around Trash Lanch. And we haven't really seen that much this weekend. Pretty much only been featured in Jon's deck.
Right, yeah, it feels like the Zoroark Garbodor deck is the only remaining Garbodor deck in the format, almost. There's like some Buzzwole Garbodor decks running around, but not that many of them, and it's kind of interesting because, like you said, it was such a format-defining card for so long as it was in the standard format at least. It really affected the way people built their decks. It was just such a threat, and, you know, showing that it's trying to make its way back to the finals once again, Zoroark and Garbodor. And we're going to be setting up for a Game 3 scenario here. The winner of this game moving on to the finals. Lots and lots on the line at this point. Players drawing their opening hands, and we're going to see prize cards set out now. Oh, 2 Trubbishes on Jon's side. And the Super Rod. Not great prizes. Let's see what Hunter has to lay out. Computer search, never want to see that. 2 VS Seekers and a Tina Chomp. Not the best, but honestly nothing detrimental to his strategy.
All right, Hunter starts off Game 3 here. Double Dragon off the top. He will not need to try to find those.
Well, I mean, if he is forced to discard this with a Dedenne or a Sycamore or something like that, and he doesn't have a Dragon in his hand, it might make it even harder. But starts things off right away with a Battle Compressor. When you're playing Executes in your deck, Battle Compressor is always one of the things you want to see on your first turn.
Looks like both are going to be the choice for Hunter here.
He does have a Mysterious Treasure in his hand, so that will allow him to get a Dragon Pokemon in play.
Yeah, his hand's actually looking pretty sweet here. Starts that Tapu Koko Prism Star, so you don't have to find that later.
Right.
And then he has a Roxy's in his hand as well as the Double Dragon and another Lightning.
Yeah.
So,
and also Treasure combined with this this Giratina from Lost Thunder.
Yeah.
Getting that in the discard right away is always something you want to do.
Pretty sweet looking turn here for Hunter. Roxy's also going to net him 6 fresh cards. And again, one of the reasons I think Zoroark was so strong was because you're facing off against a lot of other Zoroark decks.
Right.
So your first turn's not really going to be that powerful. Your first turn is Bridget, maybe played on another Pokemon, maybe an Energy and pass. Now you have a deck like Hunter's, where my first turn is I'm going to do everything.
Yeah, definitely a very explosive deck on this side. And I think if Hunter can also retreat and use the Dance of the Ancients this turn, it could allow him to retreat into something else on the following turn and finally start getting an attack moving.
Well, there is another Battle Compressor discarding the Comfey, something that is very useful in this format for Hunter, being able to get rid of special conditions to Pokemon that have a Fairy Energy attached to it. Double Dragon Energy counts as a Fairy Energy. In this matchup, not so much.
Yep, we see it getting put in the discard right away for that very reason. Got to think it's in the deck for the Turbo Darkrai matchup. Wants to be able to combat the Hypnotoxic Lasers so that a dead-end GX does not just take a quick 3 prizes on a tag team.
And now with the 6 cards that Hunter drew, he has a Wheezing, and if he has access to another Roxy's, we could see some big linear attack damage coming out next turn as well with that Giratina in the discard.
Yeah, definitely would make a big difference here.
And the Mimikyu too.
That is a big one to find early on, especially if, like you said, he combines it with the Roxy. Jon, using that Cherish Ball, definitely a great card for these Zoroark decks because it not only can find you your Zoroark GXs, it also gets you Tapu Lele, which can find you Bridget.
Yeah, and you don't have to discard 2 cards.
Exactly. So Lele, which is also one of the downsides, honestly, it feels like a lot of times with the turns 1s of these Zoroark decks, it's like I have Ultra Ball for Lele for Bridget, but I'm going to have to discard 2 very, very important cards to do it. Cherish Ball not having that downside.
Yeah, and we do see when he's fanning through his deck, he does have the Mew, so hopefully he'll be able to get that into play, especially after how last game went with linear attack. Yeah,
I think he might, not worry about it quite as much early on in this game if his 2 Trubbishes weren't prized. If he just got down the 70 HP Trubbish, he should feel pretty good about it being safe, but if he has to get down Ditto in order to be the only out to get a Garbodor, then he might feel like he needs to get the Mew to protect the Ditto.
Oh, yeah, and this is where he's realized, like, this Ditto's all I have.
Yeah, you could kind of see a look of defeat almost on Jon's face. Eyeing up that Mew right away. Going to choose to take that over the Ditto Prism Star, so he won't be threatening Garbodor on turn 2.
Yeah, this is very telling as well, too. Hunter kind of senses a little bit of weakness. If a Trubbish does not hit the board this turn, you're like, oh, something's up.
Right. Jon does have Ultra Ball in his hand, so he could still find the Ditto Prism Star this turn if he would like. And I wonder if we will see Jon do anything differently as far as, you know, if he benches another Zorua this turn, if he had access to it, trying to play around the Roxy spread once again. But, of course, with Bridget, they go directly to the bench, so they come straight down and is not going to choose to play that Ultra Ball.
Yeah, well, again, his hand is, I think, 2 to 3 Ultra Ball, Zoroark GX, and then a Garbodor. Not cards you really want to discard, especially when he's going to need some semblance of a setup next turn.
Roxy right away from Hunter, going to get damage on all of those Zoruas, meaning there is no more trade ability because we know that Shadow Box already in Hunter's hand.
Hey, so remember last game where Hunter couldn't find any Double Dragon Energy?
Now
he now has all 4.
Yeah, not the optimal times to be finding them necessarily, but with this deck, you're not necessarily using Professor Sycamore every single turn like you might with other decks. You're actually using Roxy, which just allows you to draw cards off the top. You don't have to worry quite as much about, you know, getting some of those key resources in your hand too early.
All right, and then there is the Ultra Ball. He's either eyeing down just using double propagation, but he has a Lightning in his hand. Could mean Dance of the Ancients is full effect here. Also has a Great Catcher as well.
Yeah, could take 2 prizes on Tapu Lele this turn if he wanted to, which honestly would probably be better since he can just go knockout Lele, knockout Zoroark, knockout Zoroark. If he takes a knockout on this Oranguru this turn, that means he still might have to knock out 3 2 prizers in order to close out the game. So I feel like Great Catcher here is going to be pretty key for Hunter.
Counting up the items as well, not too many, but again, it's not really that much of a threat. There's no Trubbish on the side of the field. We know that both the Trubbishes are in the prizes.
Here comes Garchomp and Giratina to the active Lightning Energy as well. Will he play the Great Catcher to take these 2 prizes right away? And Jon is probably shaking his head at that Mimikyu coming down because he knows that that's really going to limit his options.
And there it is. Great Catcher with the double propagation from Execute in the discard brings up Tapu Lele GX, and Hunter will be able to go up 2 prizes here in Game 3 of Top 4.
And Jon really doesn't have anything that can immediately respond to this. Of course, he can attack with his Zoroark, but it's getting knocked out right away. There's no like enhanced hammer or anything like that in Jon's deck where he could, you know, hope to get rid of a you know, a special energy and hope that Hunter just doesn't have another one. The knockout is already guaranteed.
Which is different to see from what we're used to from Zoroark decks and even Zoroark Garbodor decks. Right.
I think when the mirror was so prevalent, Enhanced Hammer was such an important piece of that. The mirror really was so intricate when this deck was really popular between Pseudo-Woodos and Klefkis and Garbodors, like one-sided ability lock. And, you know, Jon here, unfortunately, not having that older list with the Enhanced Hammers in it, he's just going to get knocked out by a Calamitous Slash next turn, and there's really not much he can do to stop it.
Yeah, and discarding an Ultra Ball and a Garbodor for this Ultra Ball, eyeing down that Ditto, but again, I don't think his hand is very exciting. We might even see him Ultra Ball his hand away to get something like a Shaman or a Dedenne GX.
It might be what he's forced to do in this situation. A little bit of good news for Jon is that Hunter was not able to find one of his Chaotic Swells, so he could get a pretty sizable bench moving here.
Oh, well, here is a Rescue Stretcher getting back that Tapu Lele from the discard. Kind of a neat little counter trick here. Grabs that N and puts Hunter down to 4 cards, and Jon is hoping to draw something big here.
Yeah, I think this is what Jon really needs to hope for at this point. If he can, you know, get a 2-hit KO on this Garchomp and Giratina, of course he's going to lose this Zoroark next turn. If he can then end Hunter down to 1, himself to 6, and then establish like ability lock plus, you know, take that knockout, maybe Hunter, you know, isn't able to, you know, get back into the game since he doesn't have access to those executes anymore in order to propagate and draw with Roxy.
Oh, and here is a huge whiff from Jon here. Not drawing anything to really enable more card draw, and no Skyfield in sight, so he won't be able to continue going with Shaman or Dedenne GX.
It was Hunter last game that missed out on energy to miss a crucial attack, and now it is Jon whiffing the double colorless, and he's
Jon
just going to concede.
Scoops it up.
He knows.
Sees the writing on the wall, and Hunter Butler is now heading to the finals here in Dallas.